Hey Tiny Boaters, thank you for checking out this video. But don't stop there. Check out all my other social media platforms, everything throughout Facebook, Instagram, and even Patreon where you can get exclusive perks and rewards. Check out a full store full of everything you need for your tiny boat build. Tight lines, guys. Good luck with your boat builds. What's going on, Tiny Boaters? How are you? Today is the video, the entire process. So the video is lengthy, okay? It is what it is. The entire process of how I do these hatches. I definitely want to give you this so I can help you guys grow your experience. I get a lot of questions on the deck. I have never really documented it the way the way I did this one. So let's just sit back, prepare yourself, because this is very lengthy. Watch it in parts, watch it in pieces, but whatever happens, I hope everything we do in this playlist helps you out, so that you can have the best deck, that your decks can be flush mounted, that you can make your own hinges, you can insulate your hatches, you can dress the underside of your hatches, you can make it look as badass as you need to, and you have no limits. You don't let limits cap you in what you have here. Okay, we're making serious things. We're not cutting corners. We make everything custom in this video. So sit back, check it out. Okay, so tools needed for this deal: you need a skill saw or circular saw, a jigsaw, both with fine blades to cut plywood so it doesn't splinter. You need a square ruler and a yardstick, markers to mark down the spots and the lines. You need a carpet knife or a hobby knife, just those little retractable knives, a staple gun, 3/16 and 5/8 inch staples, and I'll explain why, coated deck screws, a rivet gun, and 1/8 inch and 1 inch grip pop rivets. Materials needed for this project are 1/2 inch plywood, birch, fir rated, marine, whatever, 3/16 inch plywood. I can find this in a hardwood equivalent, generally at Lowe's or Home Depot, oil-based enamel or polyester resin or 2-part epoxy resin, RTV silicone or better like 3M if you like, latches of your choice, whether they're flush mount, pull, slam, or cam lever latches, 20.5 pound gas struts or equivalent, piano hinges, 3/4 or 1 inch tall, aluminum preferred, 3/4 or 1.5 inch angle aluminum, or a combination of both depending on how much support you want underneath the hatches, because we're going to make our own offset piano hinges, outdoor carpet glue, a glue spreader or a trowel, and then your bunk carpet or 20-ounce carpet or whatever your decking material of choice is. But these are materials. Here we go. I'm cutting and sizing all these to fit. I just kind of winging it, but I'm leaving a fairly big gap, and right here is where you need the RTV silicone to jam into the crevices, or you can use 3M sealant, or you could use epoxy. Either way, you need markers to trace the lines and to write down the measurements, unless you have a photographic memory, which I clearly don't. I have a fairly big gap in here. It's about a 1/4 to 1/2 inch gap between the deals. Generally, a 1/4 inch gap between each panel will do, and that's for the compensation of when you apply the carpet to the hatch. That's how much the carpet will thicken up. And right now we're just overlaying and measuring how this is all going to work. Once I have all my hatches cut out to fit all over the deck, then I'm cutting a bunch of strips. This is a 3/16 inch hardwood plywood. This is a 4x8 sheet of it that I painted in oil-based enamel to initially preserve it. Obviously, we got to re-preserve it, every piece of wood again on the edges that we cut, but we're just cutting strips of it and strips of it and strips of it, and then stapling a lip along each hatch. So this is how we get a 3/4 inch thickness out of 1/2 inch plywood with not near the weight. And so we're just cutting. The thickness of the strip is at your discretion, but I really recommend no longer than an inch. It's overkill. And right after this, after you staple them together, you jam as much RTV silicone into the crevice as you possibly can. I cut slightly bigger strips right there for the offset where I was going to stick 1/2 inch angle to make my custom piano hinges, but that's the only time I ran a real thick strip like that. But that's specifically to give it grip, otherwise it would have looked real funky. And we're putting in 5/8 inch staples here. If you see me hammering, it's because the staples didn't go all the way through, and I just had to kind of pound them in there. I'm easily chipping off this wood with a pair of pliers, but you can saw it off however you want. That's how I'm doing it. the thinner you cut the strips, the more they will bend over a contour, and we're making the side hatches right there. They go right along the contour of the front of the boat. And after we got them all stapled in to fit, they're good to go. The only thing I didn't show in here is that I painted these staples prior to the carpet. I painted them smoke gray to match the carpet color, which was smoke gray. Just remember that for future reference. I do have that in another video coming up, but just know you can lightly spray paint your staples and they mesh right into the carpet. It's beautiful. Okay, now you get to see the beauty of why we went through all that trouble to make a lip. Now I'm pulling the carpet over the lip as tight as I can, and I am stapling right as it's tightened around inside the lip, as close to the lip as I possibly can, because we're going to have to cut off the excess carpet later. And now for the corners, all that excess carpet, I straight just cut it. I mean, if you get fancy with upholstery skills, you can sew it together, but really I'm just going to use staples and push them in there. And here's where we use the carpet knife or hobby knife or whatever to cut the excess carpet off. Now, if you stapled good enough, then you should be able to cut a pretty, very, very close grip all the way to the edge, and the carpet should still hold. And after that, you lay down a layer of carpet glue. And this is like the window shade stuff. I bought this at the dollar store, but I mean, it makes really good. I mean, it's got the radiant barrier sheeting on both sides, and if you can get the foam filled radiant barrier sheeting kind of window mat stuff, that's the better stuff to even get. And then we put another layer of glue on this, very lightly, obviously not to get on the carpet because then it gets a little messy. But really, we're able to stick a lot of stuff into this 3/16 inch sheeting. We're able to insulate the hatch and then give it cosmetic matting for aesthetics. And so this is actually yoga mat, like 1/8 millimeter, or 1/8, yeah, 1/8 inch thick yoga mat. Okay, and I'm stapling that in the edge because I don't quite trust it just being there with the carpet, just to prevent anything extra. But we're gonna cover that edge up with cosmetic flat bar from aluminum. Yeah, if you had like black grip liner and you paint the staples black, I swear you can't even tell. It just doesn't show. But for this gray, it really shows badly. So we are getting that flat bar in there. Check it out. We're screwing that in there just with self-tapping lath screws.
Attaching some of these hatches.
Now, just very quickly, we are going to test how these hatches fit once they're all nice and propped up, and just see how they fit on the piano hinges. And the piano hinges are coming up here very soon. For all the smaller hatches, I used marine vinyl flooring underneath as the aesthetic kind of prop. And yeah, just use these for all the smaller hatches. And these hatches, I mainly used either pull latches or slam latches because they were in odd spaces where if you're going down the road, the hatch would likely to fly up with just a regular pull latch, and then obviously would fly off the boat and hit a car and take out a family. You don't want that, so just use the appropriate latch when you need it. Okay, we're just dressing these up the best we possibly can. We're painting the staples the best color that's possibly going to blend in with this marine vinyl flooring. And then you see the hole covered in the other one there. We are going to use slam latches for this section specifically because they are the most appropriate thing that we can possibly use. A cam lever latch is overkill. A pull latch is not going to allow them. The hatches are too light and they will fly up if a bump goes over the road, and they will just do stuff. So a slam latch will give you grip, and it'll grip onto the aluminum angle, and it's but it's not $1 million, and it's a fairly cheap mod. It's like $9 for these latches. It's got to mod them to fit a wooden hatch, do some things to them, but other than that, they're good to go. These are my custom piano hinges. This is a long strip of aluminum piano hinge that I got from a metal shop, and then 3/4 by 1/16 inch aluminum angle. And I'm running these in sections, and I'm putting together with 1/8 inch grip rivets by 3/16 inch thick. Right here, I had to use some 1/2 inch rivets. I had to grind down the edges on some of these because they were sticking out too long. And so you might have that problem with these if you do this setup, but you can't cut down so deep that you miss the ball. You take out the ball completely, and then the rivet becomes like useless and it won't hold. But we're grinding them down just enough to where they're solid enough so the wood will stick on that 3/4 inch grip fine, and still hold well. And then I'll show you a little bit more about the complete process for those later, but right now we're going to stick in the smaller hatches and get them going. Okay, right here we're attaching parts of the deck. We're using 1-inch rivets, and we're siliconing in each hole after we put them in. I'll show you a little bit more of the process of that as we go on, along with parts where we had the wooden core frame and we used coated deck screws for that. We're essentially attaching the deck very last. You want to attach the deck the last actual part. Everything else in your boat has to be perfect, because if you have to redo anything and you have to take out the deck to do it, you'll mess up the piece trying to get out these rivets. Where I have the redwood core on this frame, I'm using coated deck screws, and I'm siliconing in right at the head of the screw. And I don't know why, but it just seems to evenly distribute silicone all the way down the screw point, especially if you screw in and out, which that's what's done here. Screw them in, screw them out, silicone them, screw them back in. Here I'm installing a grommet with a hole saw right in the corner, and that's right where all my electronic stuff is. If you watch my electronic video for this series, that's the pocket where all the wires are and all the main fuses and switches are. So a lot of that looks convoluted under there, but I swear a lot of that is just my fish finder wires all clumped up and banded up with zip ties. And I'm just running those through right now for an HDS 7 Gen 3. These are Apextone 22.5 pound gas struts. We're going to run one for the rod locker. One should actually hold it just fine for the moment. We're going to attach it right there to the pivot point. And the pivot point for the top of the strut should not exceed the travel of the shaft. So if you ever want to know whether or not your hatch is going to bind when you close it at a 90-degree angle, see if where you're going to mount it exceeds the height of the shaft from the bottom. And when you know that, then it's never going to jam up. It'll fit perfectly. But right here, we had to put another mount. We had to mount the ball bracket there on another piece of angled aluminum to screw into that piece of angled. So after that, we just had the measurements right where I wanted it to be, and then we just obviously installed that, which is a little bit of a mess, but we got it done. Wheel. Okay.
I was only able to cut through that like that because that's super thin sheet metal. On a normal premise, wooden hole saws terribly suck at cutting metal. So that's the only reason I did that I knew I could do that. And that's also, really, if you look at what I'm doing here, what had to be done.
These are cam lever latches. They come with either flat or offset brackets, and they're pretty nice. These are the nice ones you see on the more high dollar bass boats, and they're worth the money. They fit. Nothing is ever going to break those when you have them set in place.
Boom, key locked. So I had to have a lock. I strongly debated on putting these on each of these hatches, and later on I may. Like, quite frankly, I want to be able to go to a restaurant and eat after I get off the water. In some places where we have to fish, the town is not full of the most, the greatest people. So definitely nice to have locks in some of your stuff.
Right here, I am widening the holes with a bigger drill bit to countersink. I'm not putting any pressure on the drill bit. I'm just simply pressing the trigger and circling it around, and it gives me a perfect countersink.
3/16 with a 1/8 inch grip rivets are what you would want for the best outcome without having to shave them. As it presses, and open up. Oh yes, so nice. Just ran and attached these all with 1/8 inch popper, which is real small, fairly well flushed in there. They're pretty low profile, and there's enough of them to where they'll hold this fine. And then I can just put this piece in here. It's kind of like a cover piece. That's all it is, just a cosmetic piece, and so I'll just rivet that on each side. That's heinous. I gotta figure out a way to thicken that so it doesn't do this. But other than that, money on the live well. Alright, so from front to back, here it goes. This is my tray hatch. That worked pretty cool. I will be releasing a video on this, how I did the whole thing, because it's a little bit more complicated than the standard hatches that I showed you today. But works nice on 2 struts. This is my first day stow. So the 5-gallon top boxes, really I'm super happy about them. Not only will they never break, but they hold a lot of crap. I made my tackle stows flip sideways, that way I can access them whether I'm on the front or the back of the boat. So you don't need to be moving all around the boat as a co-angler or the main angler trying to access hatches. And so I have some swim bait racks here, slash jig racks, slash whatever racks you need them to be. The boxes don't hold near as much tackle as I want them to, but they'll hold 6 regular tackle boxes plus 3 of the smaller ones. And so I can fit enough gear, and if I really need to, I can store more gear, because that deep stow is actually really big. And here, I mean, it's just an adjacent one. I kept these at more of a slacked angle so the hatches don't bounce when they open, and that's another big deal. And it's my live well, which is a beast. It really is. Right now it's just storage, and it was really useful for the co-angler storage earlier. My buddies bought a bunch of crap. This is my battery stow. I haven't padded it in yet because I wanted this special like padding, this rubber padding for the inside because they're batteries. But hold my batteries pretty nice. I probably more appropriately need 2 Group 29 batteries. But in the meanwhile, I can store a lot of extra stuff. Like I store my camera gear, a few extra tackle boxes, whatever. The front nav light, and just random stuff I can stick around the batteries that aren't like flammable or conducting. Rod locker. I'm super happy about how it came out because I made it nice, like lower profile and fatter, so all the rods can come through and none of them are jammed together. So these all actually slide out very harmoniously, and I made them on an angle like this, so they can compensate for my 10-foot rods with the butt in, all the way down to 9, 8, and then 7-foot rods, or 6 rods. And then it really works very well. I love the slanted grip like that. This is how I outfitted the bottom of my rod locker, with a big long brace underneath. Yeah, I dig this. I don't know if it's as epic as my John boat, but it's pretty darn close, and in the end the boat is much more capable of doing things that the John boat could never do.
Here I got my trusty HDS 7 Gen 3, which is likely to get updated with the HDS Live here pretty soon. I got my fuse panel in here, super easy to access. You can just take this thing off. It comes up real easy with a latch down there, and you can just see all the fuses right down the low on the angle, so you can see whether or not they're busted or broken. You can just replace them at will. This is my DIY switch panel, and I have my day. So this is another 5-gallon tough box, but it's just underneath a smaller stow, and the rest of the box sits underneath this part here. These panels, I was able to reintegrate these panels in to make pretty useful sections where I have rod holders and cleat holders and essentially anything else I need. Over here I have a series, I have the back stow light here, and then I have a Scotty mount thingy here. I've used that forever for GoProing. Here I have my battery box, and I do need to insulate the battery boxes. This is like one of the last things I got to do is fabricate inside the box, but it just stores another Group 24 battery here, and the main switch is right here, and it turns on all the lights, and this one's connected on a battery switch here, or a hatch switch. And then we have, it's also connected to this one, and I have another battery meter coming up to the front to read 24 volt systems, so I can see what my battery juice is like that. This is my back hatch. The back hatch kind of came all jacked, and you can see this, and this was a result of a warp blade that I pushed through anyways, and I kind of had to fix it that way, and possibly off measurements. I'm gonna have to redo this hatch eventually. I don't like where this sits. This is a flushed in over, carpeted over pedestal mount. I don't like that, but probably gonna move it over here more, and then redo the hatch, and then give it a cam lever latch, because this latch broke. There's a lot of problems with this thing, which is why this is here. So this is like something I need to work on, but you know, you live and you learn. The end result is it works. I sit on it. It closes and shuts and latches, so I just put regular wood supports underneath. Not that I don't think the hatch really needed it, but I put them under anyways. Stainless steel hardware. This stores my gas tank, and there's where all my bilges and all the magic and all that stuff is down there. And I put a wall plug there for my rear trolling motor. I had like an all-electric day the other day with my 70-pound main coated Traxxas there, which did really nice on the boat. Overall, I really enjoyed my first little venture on the boat with my buddy Ken and my son and his friend who came down from Phoenix. I hope this gives you some insight on everything. Stay tuned for the subfloor video and the side paneling video, which I'm going to talk about recently, and ultimately how I installed gator guards all over the bottom of my boat for the subfloor, which really put the entire thing on a different level. And all that's to come. There's a few more videos in the series before we get the final reveal of this thing on the water and its best. However you do your boat, be safe out there. If you want to be able to show support to this channel to help it sustain and grow, check out my Patreon page. It's right here. And I also have a bunch of rewards and perks for different sets of tiers. A lot of cool stuff. A lot of my patrons have a good kick out of it. And these are people's first boats. So it took me forever to make a boat like this. And so for the really dedicated ones on Patreon, I try and make them their first boat, so they don't have to go through 10-15 boats of pain and agony to do it. So look into it, and either way, thank you very much. Like the video, help it trend, help TP Nation grow, guys. Peace.